These two lessons, this one and the next, are entirely devoted to two common occurrences. This lesson talks about the malignant one, aiming to discuss the downward spiral, a common fallacy or trap that one may fall into during a continued endeavor. The downward spiral, as the name may suggest and the shape of the spiral may point out, is a type of trap that you can fall or rather sink into. If I use a general example, let's say you find yourself during a particularly important exam. Let's take the AP exams that at time of recording I'll be taking in 2 weeks of time. Let's say I've had a very good streak of solving the questions, but I'm stumped on a particular one. To make matters worse, I also perceive that the following questions are going to be increasing in difficulty. I'm, in other words, getting stumped on a question that should be relatively easy to solve. Now, I have two options. The first one is going to be I can take a few minutes and waste time on the question at hand. There's a good chance that I may solve the problem, but there's also a chance that I'm continuing to get stumped. I can also skip it and face the next problem, coming back to the stubborn one after I finish the entire paper or when I feel more comfortable doing so. If anything, your teacher would instruct you to follow the second route. Should you have taken the first, you would have been ensnared in the downward spiral, a negative cycle where poor performance or difficult learning leads to further bad feelings and a gradual decline in motivation. For many chess players, the downward spiral often starts with a string of losses or poor performances. Perhaps you're doing well, climbing the ranks, and then suddenly hit a wall. The more games you lose, the more your confidence takes a hit, and as your confidence wanes, you start to second guess your moves. You become more tentative and make even more mistakes. The cycle can be especially brutal since each loss chips away at your ranking, and chips at your ELO rating as well. It can be harder for you to get matched up against players at your skill level, and suddenly you find yourself facing opponents who are simply outclassing you, leading to more defeats and an even widening gap between your abilities and theirs. The downward spiral can be just as insidious when it comes to writing. You start out strong with a clear voice and a knack for crafting compelling narratives, but then for some reason, your writing begins to falter. Perhaps you hit a bout of writer's block, or you start to second guess every word you put onto paper. Start to second guess your word choice, and your confidence in your own writing ability wanes. The problem with this comes that you may find yourself becoming more tentative, more prone to self-editing, and simply becoming less willing to take creative risks. This in turn can lead to writing that feels stiff, uninspired, or lacking the very qualities that makes your work stand out in the first place. A key reason why many people fear the downward spiral is because it takes the individual out of their comfort zone. And so, how do we avoid or cope with the downward spiral? A person panics when they have no idea what to do in a situation they've never come across, or when they're facing continual losses for the first time. In retaliation, an easy method would be to practice your fundamentals. In chess, this means going back to your opening skills, practicing tactical patterns, or honing your endgame skills. In writing, this could be improving your character development, plot structure, or enhancing descriptive language. Consequently, you can also embrace deliberate practices that focus specifically on your weaknesses. Don't just play more games or write more pages. Engage in focused, targeted practices that can address your specific weaknesses. In chess, this may mean that you're analyzing your past games to identify patterns, identify past downward spirals that have ensnared you so that you make sure you don't fall into these traps a second time. It could involve seeking out feedback from trusted readers or working to improve the areas they identify as needing improvement if you are a writer. Hopefully, with these skills, you can avoid the downward spiral. I'll see you next time with the Zen mode, the positive side of every endeavor that you may come across.